Hello, my name is Ellen Lafferty, and I'm a member of the League of Women Voters of Livingston County. Welcome to our online candidate forum for the Michigan House 48th District in the November 5th general election. The Jackson area, Livingston, and Washtenaw County chapters of the League of Women Voters are nonpartisan, nonprofit organizations that promote voter education and participation. And we host candidate forums to help voters make informed choices. Now, let's hear from our candidates.
Hello, my name is Lauren Hornberger, and I will moderate the forum this evening. It's my honor to introduce two of the three candidates running in the November general election for Michigan House of Representatives District 48, Eric Beauregard from the Green Party and Jennifer Conlin, Democrat. Republican candidate Brian Ignatowski was invited, but scheduling conflicts prevented him from attending. Thank you, candidates, for participating in this forum. We're now ready for your opening statement, Mr. Beauregard.
Hi, my name is Eric Beauregard. I have a bachelor's degree in broadcasting and cinema arts and an associate degree in applied science. I had a 30-year career in technical publication business and mostly worked in publications in the automobile companies and the military before migrating into cable TV, e-marketing, and online video productions. I own a business called EB Graphics. And I have taught in the public schools, mostly in the high school level. Politically, I've been in the Reform Party, and I have run as a Democrat. And in college, I was even a young Republican, so I know what it's like to be a young Republican whippersnapper. But for most of the last 24 years, I've been in the Green Party. And I've come to realize over the years that our planet is dying, and that doing absolutely nothing about it is the wrong way to be going politically. And finally, that we need more choices than the ones being offered us or forced on us by the large corporation and media companies. That is, Genocide Blue Party and the Genocide Red Party. So I'm a Green, and so I'm for electing peace, social justice, and nonviolence instead.
Thank you. And now, Ms. Conlin, may we have your opening statement?
My name is Jennifer Conlin, and I am the current state representative for House District 48, which includes parts of Washtenaw, Livingston, and Jackson counties. This is a fabulous district that is very politically diverse. It goes from very progressive Ann Arbor to pretty conservative Howell. And I think my background has made me particularly suited for being the representative in this district. I was born and raised in Washtenaw County, went to the University of Michigan, and then went on to become a journalist. At Northwestern, I attended graduate school in journalism, married my husband. I met at the University of Michigan, and we embarked together as he was a journalist on a 40-year career that took us all over the world as journalists. And we moved back here in 2010 to Washtenaw County and have been here ever since. And I ended up becoming a journalist around writing a lot about Detroit, Michigan politics, and the environment and small business. And so when I was asked to run in this district, it just seemed like I was a great person to do that because I know how to listen to two sides. And I've been doing that for the last 18 months that I've been in office, and it has been quite an honor to serve this district. Thank you.
Thank you very much to both candidates. And now to the questions. And the first question will go to Ms. Conlin. And the topic is corporate subsidies. The question is, the Michigan legislature could not agree this year on renewal of the SOAR fund, which supports business attraction. Some detractors criticize the effectiveness of SOAR grants. What is your philosophy regarding the use of taxpayer funds to create jobs? And should such spending focus on encouraging technology and innovation or instead on manufacturing jobs?
So I think it should actually apply to both. The SOAR funding money has always been controversial because it is a little bit of the pay to play that we have to do sometimes to keep our big automotive companies in particular. You know, we saw Ford go to Tennessee, and we wanted them to stay here and go to Marshall, Michigan, to create jobs, to create more union jobs. And it has been very kind of difficult around the fact that in the end, some of those jobs and things have not turned out to be as high paying as we hoped. So we keep looking at SOAR again and again to make sure that this is something that's good for Michiganders. But now that we're really focusing so much of our efforts on EVs and on our automotive industry being green and on the Healthy Climate Jobs Act that we passed in the state legislature around having no fossil fuels in our state by 2040, we are really ramping up our production of all the infrastructure needed for EVs. I think we're having trouble right now getting people to buy them a bit because there aren't enough charging stations, and we need to have the facilities to create, better batteries and the things that are needed to make that whole industry stay in Michigan where we want it to stay. We do not want to lose the car industry. But so those SOAR funds, I really do believe are needed in various moments for some corporate discounts for those industries to stay in the state of Michigan, because we need to develop our workforce. We need to get more people moving back here. And the way that happens is through job creation.
Mr. Beauregard, same question.
Look, I've been running for public office for 25 years. Democrats always promise these economic things to the businesses, and the Republicans, they are business, and so they promise themselves lower taxes. The truth is our government is kind of lazy and slow, and the two parties are constantly at war with each other, dividing the nation and rendering it inept and kind of dysfunctional. They're fighting over the state's financial resources, so they can be redistributed amongst their special interests, and that funding fund their campaigns and keep them permanently in office. One of the advantages of voting for a Green is the Green New Deal. In it, we don't take the money from the corporation or interest groups. We are not wasting your money on the whole kickback routine. And Greens are so much more frugaler than this. We encourage things like mass transit, high-speed rail over automobile lobbies. It's more permanent, more efficient, and more economically friendly. It doesn't require everybody to go in debt maintaining an expensive fleet of personal automobiles. They're overcrowding our cities and wasting fuel and this planet.
Thank you. The next question will start with Mr. Beauregard, and the topic is employment issues. As a result of a recent Michigan Supreme Court decision, Michigan minimum wage rates will increase next year. All employees will be eligible for paid sick days, and the separate minimum wage for tip workers will be phased out. Michigan employer groups are lobbying the legislature to roll back these changes. What, if anything, should the legislation do?
Well, I'm for a $25 an hour minimum wage in Michigan. And I think we also need a universal basic income, particularly for people who are making less than $65,000 a year. But this would have to be instituted by the two major political parties at the federal level, because these are major financial changes. They are neoliberals. Both parties believe in capitalism. The Green Party is an eco-socialist party based in people solutions, not corporate solutions to people problems. So you would be making a dramatic change if you started to look at the political landscape as socialist and capitalist. And the capitalists are going to fight over whatever their corporate masters tell them to do. The Green Party is focused on what grassroots problems and designing an economy that actually not only solves our economic problems, but also our environmental problems at the same time. And a lot of what our problems, 70% of our what we do is damaging to the environment. So this is a very dynamic change that we have to go under if we're going to really go out of this dying planet phase we're going into, the sixth mass extinction that scientists call it.
Ms. Conlin, same question.
Yeah, so as I think we all know, this summer, the Michigan, Supreme Court basically said that the adopt and amend rule that had happened under the Republicans was not going to go through, creating what we now know is quite an urgent matter, because this will go into effect in February, as I understand it. So I've already been talking to the Michigan Restaurant and Lodging Association, as have my colleagues in Washtenaw County, because basically, I think although the ballot initiative was a good one to raise the minimum wage, the way this bill has come out, taking away all the tip credit that we have in our restaurants particularly, is very damaging, because at the end of the day, a lot of restaurants could close down as a result of this. Our people who are on the server minimum wage basically can make $40 an hour, they've told me, by being on that minimum wage, but being allowed those tips. And they're not going to drive 20 minutes to work at a restaurant in Ann Arbor or in Brighton or in Howell or in Jackson if that is just for that bare minimum wage. So I think we're working on what that fix would look like, which is bringing the minimum wage up eventually a certain amount every single year, but also keeping the the tip credit allowed for the moment, because we can't make up for that, and our restaurants can't make up for that. And we don't want to go to restaurants where we're just ordering off those iPads. When it comes to paid sick leave, the way we need to make that more flexible too, the way it's written now is you could take 3 days off without any notification from a doctor. Our restaurateurs are worried that will happen over 4th of July weekend. Someone will be like, hey, peace out. I'm going to not work the next 3 days, because they would be able to do that. And that could mean restaurants could close. So, I mean, they would have to close because they wouldn't have enough servers for a long weekend like that, or a long football game weekend. So we are working with them diligently to fix this.
Thank you. The next question will start with Ms. Conlin, and the topic is around wetland protection. Last year, the U.S. Supreme Court substantially limited the federal EPA's power to protect wetlands, leaving most protection efforts to the states. Michigan has a wetlands protection law, but it requires continual funding and other support from the legislature. What specific additional steps, if any, do you think are needed to protect Michigan wetlands?
Well, I mean, I've been working closely with Eagle on a number of things, because in my district, I have the chain of lakes, which has a lot of problems around PFAS and has a lot of problems around flooding because of the phosphorus that goes in from fertilizers into that land. But I have a very unique district, and then I have 9 townships. I have a sliver of the city of Ann Arbor, and I have and the village of Pinckney. So this entire district is very rural for the most part. I mean, I don't have the city of Brighton or the city of Howell. I have around them. I don't have the city of Dexter or Chelsea, but I have around them. And so the biggest thing that comes from local townships really is around development, and a lot of the development that pops up, one of the bigger concerns is preserving those wetlands that we really need to keep our environment safe. So though I haven't touched any of that legislation yet, I don't sit on those committees. And to be honest, I don't think anything has come up in the State House regarding that. I'm working on PFAS legislation. I could certainly look into it, but I am all for preserving our wetlands. I know the ecosystem is really important about that. So the only thing that I have touched in this district has really been around development and anyone who is concerned. We have a big wetland up in the sort of Hamburg area that could actually become more of a reservoir for some of the flooding we're seeing on Orr Lake. So the Army Corps of Engineers is looking into that, which would preserve that wetland, but also help that situation we have on that lake. But I'm certainly willing to look into whether we need to do more legislation with Eagle around these wetlands being preserved.
Thank you. Mr. Beauregard, same question.
Well, I would say wetlands are the tip of the iceberg. And I would say to both Democrats and Republicans, I'm here to tell you, sadly, that you can never make America great again. Technically speaking, you can't. You can never bring back the country the way it was our founding fathers first found it. 96% of America's forests have been cut down. I mean, cut down, mowed down, blown away like tiny green bristles. 82% of the freshwater fish gone. 92% of the birds dead. 98% of the reptiles all gone, flattened like pancakes on our roads, blown away like flying hamburger in our lawnmowers. The loss of nature has put our society under ever-increasing stress, environmentally due to toxic pollution and socially due to overpopulation. The human degradation is not only ruining our health, it's also ruining our cognitive brain function, the very thing humans need to survive on this planet. On top of that, the global warming has gone beyond human control. We've entered the 6th mass extinction era. Today, everyone is sensing entering a new apocalyptic time. Native Americans have known something was wrong the first white settlers came. Black Americans experienced this commerce and white male environmental exploitation firsthand. Women, too, have experienced the toxic male domination inherited in a two-party system. Now, politically, could just keep voting for these two parties who are responsible, endlessly dividing and turning us against each other until there's just nothing left. But not all is lost. There's still some hope, but only if students vote correctly and consistently for the right party with the right set of key values, green environmental and social justice values.
Thank you. The next question, we will start with Mr. Beauregard, and the topic is around rural issues. Agriculture plays a large role in the economy of your House district. How can the legislature support the agricultural industry to the benefit of Michigan citizens?
Well, it's kind of a backward question. Agriculture is a business, okay? So it has to basically, we have a economic system that's based on supply and demand. So you need free enterprise, and that determines how much money they make. So the government coming in and subsidizing things, again, you have this sort of exchange of special interest money, and is monoculture the way we want to go? Do massive giant farms where we want to go, or go to much more smaller family-owned farms? So I think we should support the family-owned farms and large agricultural farms. They are plenty financed by giant corporations, and the state really doesn't really be in this business.
Thank you. Ms. Conlin?
Yeah, so I just was recently added to the House Agriculture Committee, so I'm very happy to be on that because I have a lot of farms in my district. So I've only been to a few meetings, but hopefully I'll continue to attend those in the new year. One of the biggest things is I have the only farm in the whole state of Michigan that was closed down because of PFAS contamination. And it's a cattle farm in Brighton. And this was someone doing, pasture to plate, beautiful meat that he was creating, growing and processing. And unfortunately, he put his hand up to have his land tested for PFAS, and it came out that there was PFAS in that land and in his cattle. And he was shut down within a week and lost a farm that's been in his family for 100 years. We've been helping him with some remediation, but I know that there's this problem in other farmland in the state of Michigan because they were encouraged to use biosolids as fertilizer, which came from our wastewater treatment plants, which unfortunately has PFAS in it. So I have just introduced legislation that will look at how we can help and support financially our farmers in the state of Michigan around this issue. As for smaller, like remediation, if they need the funds for help. Around smaller farms, I have tons of them in my district as well. I go to the farmers markets, and I know that many of them would like to be able to do a bit more in terms of cottage food industry laws, which don't allow them to do more than $25,000 a year in business for when they would like to do $50,000 a year. That's particularly for baked products and things like that. But we have a lot of small farms that really need to have more support from the townships. I have farms in this district that would like to expand, put up a tomato, hoop place for their tomatoes, and they're not allowed. And so we're looking a lot at right to farm issues for a lot of our township small farms. Thanks.
Thank you. The next question will start with Ms. Conlin, and the topic is around elections. Do you believe Michigan elections are free and fair? If not, what steps are needed to ensure that they are?
I believe they were very free and fair, and I think I've watched as the ballot initiative that went through in 2022 around elections and more early voting and everything. I've watched as our Judiciary Committee has had to put into process so much around funding and making sure we have enough poll workers for those early days. Now that we have 9 early days of voting, I talk to clerks when I go all over my district in particular. What do you need? How can we help? And I do think they are truly fair, and it's going to be a busy day on November 5th. I think we all know that, but I think that our polling stations are prepared for that. There's a lot of support coming from the Secretary of State for anybody who has any issues around voting, even on the day of the voting, if you're voting in person. But obviously with absentee ballots and drop-off boxes and you can take your absentee ballot in person. There's so many more options now. So I think we're going to have a very fair and hopefully smooth election process November 5th.
Thank you. Mr. Beauregard?
First, I'd like to say that I believe in ranked choice voting and public financing of elections. This year, Michigan Secretary of State tightened up the paperwork it takes to get on the ballot. So the Democratic Party could force minor party candidates off the ballot. We had 5 of them, and we had to have a second convention, and we had another one taken off in 13th District. And there's a very big litigation going on with that. Our system elections have been taken over by huge corporate enterprise. It's a pay-for-play system where the paying candidates use the money to leverage the media and social special interests so they can always win. Poor minor party candidates are pushed aside by a corporate-controlled media in favor of their profits. That's how they feel, a free people should be represented, and they call it democracy. Bullying and throwing people off the ballot. When Democrats do this, they are not representing all the people. They are not furthering the small Democrat. They are silencing competing viewpoints and only lining the big D donors' pockets.
Thank you. The next question will be our last question, and we'll start with Mr. Beauregard. And the topic is around personal values. In what civic or nonprofit organizations have you been active in recent years?
Civic organizations? I am the state representative for Washtenaw County Green Party. And so I've been preparing for a campaign. As far as the local civic organizations, I do attend a lot of church fundraising around our community. I mean, far and wide, I go to all the churches, and I go to the Rumreach sales, and I do appear, in the congregation and talk to people and get their opinion. I also garage sale, so I'm actually out every day as part of my eBay business, talking and seeing what the people really are like right when they're in their driveway, and just people to people. They're not thinking about being Democrats and Republicans. This is the media hypnosis mind game. You think these 30-second spots that we're paying every 10 minutes on television over and over aren't driving people mentally confused? And they think this is how they communicate with the people. And when you talk to realtor people, they think all their politicians are nuts. And I have to agree with them.
Ms. Conlin?
Yes, my values are very much about ending the divisiveness, if possible, in our mainstream politics at this point, particularly because I represent a district that is a 50-50 district. And I couldn't go to sleep at night if I wasn't caring about my Republicans as much as my Democrats. And I'm really proud to say that my journalism background has really helped me to really spend time with the Republican leaders in Livingston County. And my listening skills, I think, have been really great. And I feel like I've really made progress in creating relationships up there. As far as what I did before I was a journalist, you weren't allowed to participate too much in outside things as a journalist, but I did. I was on the board of something called A2 Ethics, which was around teaching ethics to high school students in particular. My parents founded an independent school in Ann Arbor, and as an alum and as a parent of my kids who ended up going there, I was the board president on that board for a while, which has been very helpful, being on the education committee in Lansing. Even though, of course, I don't think any public school public funds should go to private schools, I do think that my experiences, having been in independent school, is a good one to have on that board. So my values are really around, listening, caring about the entire community, and hoping I can represent everybody that comes to me, and then I can take every phone call. And now I attend every nonprofit thing I can. I went to the Big Brothers, Big Sisters, and Girls Group. And the wonderful thing now about being a rep is I can go to a lot of those nonprofit events, and I try to attend as many as possible.
Thank you both for your responses to our questions. And now it's time for our closing statements. We'll begin with Mr. Beauregard.
There are 110 members in this Michigan State Legislature, and if I'm elected, I would just be one of those 110 members. I may be able to have a direct effect on one or two areas of legislation, along with my regular voting record, and that's pretty much it. So my goal in running is far beyond that. If I'm elected, I would be the highest ranking Green Party candidate ever elected in this country. So in our highly rigged corporate media controlled two-party system, I would be such an incredible miracle if I won. But that's just what we need in this country right now, a miracle. My election would be a wake-up call to both the Democratic and Republican parties that their status quo days are over. The people will be gaining a Green New Deal vision of America, especially because I was winning in one of the most polluting and environmentally condemned states in the country. That the people here had finally woken up. The era of Democratic pandering and greenwashing on the environment and the economy, social justice issues would be over. That the CO2 levels had finally soared so high that it had blown up in their faces. That their campaigns of fear, warmongering, and genocide had been thwarted. The Green Party had won. Peace had won instead.
Thank you. Ms. Conlin, your closing statement?
Yes, it's been such an honor and privilege to represent House District 48. This is my first time in political office, and I have just found it so rewarding. I have been probably maybe most proud of some of the work I've done on the Committee for Military, Veterans, and Homeland Affairs, which I chair, having lived overseas for such a long time in the Middle East and in Europe. You get to know your military as journalists pretty well. And right now, I have a bipartisan bill that I think is going to pass, hopefully, in the next coming months, which creates one office in Michigan for suicide prevention and mental health for our veterans, because we lose 129 veterans every year in the state of Michigan. And although we have a lot of resources, this creates one office. Hopefully that's going to happen. Obviously, I'm incredibly proud to have voted on gun safety legislation for reproductive rights and the Reproductive Health Act, which got rid of a lot of limitations that were put on reproductive health access, even when Roe was legal in the state of Michigan before we had Prop 3. So I hope very much I get to stay in office because I finally learned how to do the job in these 18 months, and I'd like to be able to continue now that I know what I'm doing. So I hope to come back. Thank you.
Thank you both for participating in this valuable session. It's very much appreciated. Ms. Lafferty will now provide some closing comments.
The Jackson area, Livingston, and Washtenaw County chapters of the League of Women Voters thank the candidates and the volunteers who participated in this forum, and to the community members who submitted questions. Please urge others to view our forums. And most importantly, please vote in the November 5th general election, either by absentee ballot, in person, voting early. No matter what you do, please come out and vote on November 5th. Thank you.